Yo, everybody, what's up, people? It's your boy, Truth Teacher, aka El Martillo Jamaiquino, aka the Jamaican Hammer. Just coming at you right quick to give you this video. So anyway, I've been looking around, and of course, you know, I always see things on the internet, on YouTube, that I have to criticize because they're making distortions about African history, African culture, and I gotta set them straight. So this time is no exception. This time I gotta go after my boy, the Radical Latino. But yo, check it out. This is my boy though, you know? Me and him, we cool. He's real cool people, man. I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for his channel and his content. But on this particular issue, we got a disagreement. And I gotta set him straight. But everybody, listen, I gotta make an admission here. You know, me and Rad, we do have past history, you know, because as you know, I used to be a history teacher, and it just so turns out that me and Rad, we had crossed paths before in the past when I was a history teacher, and he was one of my students, yo. So, yo, as you all know, I gave up school teaching because of many different reasons, but I gotta be honest, I never really told you the whole truth. And the reason why I left school teaching was because of what happened between me and Radical Latino when he was my student. So, I mean, I could tell you like everything about it, but you know, I figure I'll show you the video footage from the classroom, and that'll pretty much explain what went down. All right. But before I show you the video evidence or the footage, I gotta explain. Like Red, you know, he was always an intelligent student, you know. He was one of my better students who always got good grades and everything. But, you know, he would sit in the back of the classroom and just create havoc all the time. He'd be sitting in the back of the classroom with all the knuckleheads. And, you know, I just got tired of it, you know? You in the classroom, you trying to do your thing. You know, you trying to teach these kids and everything. And you got a knucklehead that's being rowdy, that's always creating mischief. You know, so, you know, you get to a point where, you know, you reach your breaking point. So, anyway, that's a lot of information, man. Let me just show you the footage, man, you know?
Why can't you give me the respect that I'm entitled to? Why can't you treat me the way I would be treated by any stranger on the street? Because I am not one of your fans!
Yo, Rab, what's up, man? I'm just fucking with you, man. But listen, seriously, like this issue, you know, we talked about this, you know, this whole issue about the Olmecs, you know, and whether or not Africans were here in the Americas before Columbus. And, you know, I told you what I think and why. I gave you my evidence, and you still went ahead and, you know, you put your video out there, which is cool, you know, that's all right. But I have to come in and, you know, put my information out there. Now, to be perfectly honest, this was a topic that I was planning on tackling for a very long time, because it's something that regularly comes up in discussions about African history. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to get too deep into it in this video, but what I will say is that there's a lot of confusion out here, a lot of historical revisionism going on in certain segments of the black community by so-called Afrocentrics. And to me, Afrocentricity, well, not to me, I mean in actuality, it's a fact. Afrocentricity, or what it's been hijacked into becoming, is really nothing more than the opposite side of the coin of Eurocentricity. This whole idea that your race, your color, whatever, is linked to your value, your level of intelligence, etc., is not a concept that was created by African people. Alright? This whole idea of putting people into categories and identifying by a color rather than a culture or a nationality is something that was created by Europeans. So just because you want to flip it and put the black man as the main character in this story doesn't mean that it's African. You're just basically recycling some old Eurocentric bullshit. And that's what a lot of these theories are. It's bullshit. Now, the problem that I have is looking at this. Why would people who claim to be so proud of being black go so far out of their way to make up shit about our history? And the reason for that is because, once again, they're working in a Eurocentric mindset. In their heart of hearts, they really do not believe that African people made anything of significance or did anything of significance. So in order to correct that feeling of insecurity or whatever, and they recognize that there's a big feeling of insecurity that a lot of people carry, they figure, okay, well, let me make up some mystical, magical bullshit. And even if it's not true, you know, it's a good thing because it's going to be like a placebo effect, right? It'll be something to make people feel good about themselves. But my point is this. We actually have enough real history, both in the African continent and in the African diaspora. We don't need to make up history. It's already there. The only issue is that we're not paying attention to it. And so that's what pisses me off. Because when you look at the real history, you recognize that these people that they're trying to claim, in a lot of ways, were technologically not as advanced as African people were. So, you know, this whole idea, it sounds, you know, it's a sexy idea. Ooh, Africans, we were here before Columbus, you know? But on closer inspection, you see that there's a lot of holes in this theory. Now, you chose, now I know why you made this video, okay? And I'm not faulting you for that. Basically, you wanted to address Butthead with the black nose, because he went all apeshit when Black Princess suggested that there's a lot of African influences in Latin culture. And that is true. There is a lot of African influences in Latin culture. Not only that, but I go farther than that and say even in the culture in Spain itself, you can find African influences. And these are things that are readily identified, documented, well known. This ain't some, you know, woo-woo bullshit. This is actual facts that you can look up in mainstream historical and cultural sources and verify. So, what pissed me off though is the source that you used. I mean, damn, like, Yo. Oh, okay. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just play the video, and then I'm gonna break in with my commentary. All right?
All right, Annetta, lock the doors, because what I'm about to say is going to upset some people right next here. Okay. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Exactly. I mean, never mind the question of like how you can discover a place where the inhabitants are watching you arrive from the shore. They weren't wearing pants. Is that what somebody said? I like that. So anyway, there were actually many other mariners before Columbus that discovered America as well. Decades earlier, even eons earlier, there were so many people that were coming across these islands and this continent. But it's only been in the last century that evidence has surfaced and continually grown to indicate that many of these pre-Columbian explorers might have come from Africa.
I wonder if you know that I know he's lying right now.
So first of all, let's just take a look at this organization that's hosting this event. Is this an academic institution? No. This is a social group of people that get together over drinks, and their main priority is being able to tell an interesting story. Alright, so we got that out the way now about this group. Let's look at this individual that's giving this presentation. Dan Van Hoyel? Whatever the fuck. Alright, so this is his LinkedIn page. And let's go down and see what his credentials are to be talking on this historical topic. He ain't got no credentials. This dude is into some weird BDSM, bondage, S&M kind of crap and pornography. So he's not a scholar, alright? But if you go on the website of this organization that's hosting him, it states very clearly you don't have to be an expert on what you're talking about. You just got to be able to tell an interesting story, which is why they call it Odd Salon. Now, I don't know about you, but that shit pisses me off because there's nothing odd about my history. And the fact that these people are getting together, treating our history in this way really pisses me off. But anyway, let's move on.
So the first scientist to promote this possibility was Leo Wiener. Born in Russia, Wiener immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century on his way to British Honduras, where he planned to open a vegetarian commune. Well, when that turned out not to be the dream job he expected, he moved back to the United States and he became a professor at Harvard University, as one does. But in his time in Mesoamerica, he started noticing things. There were lots of things that led him to encounter certain discoveries that made him consider that possibly if the origins of American civilization might actually be in Africa. So he observed so many linguistic and botanical and other similarities that between 1920 and 1922, he published an extensive 3-volume piece called Africa and the Discovery of America. Now, unfortunately, this is the 1920s, so as yet, no serious archaeological evidence had been done to, or work had been done to support his botanical theories, because everyone was over raiding tombs in Egypt and things like that. Nod to Howard Carter. So he didn't have a whole lot of other stuff than the names to support him. However, he knew that other clues must exist. For example, he pointed out that Columbus himself was aware that African mariners had preceded him. In his diary of his second voyage, Columbus tells of how the natives of Hispaniola actually had given him gold-tipped metal spearheads that they said were brought by black-skinned people who had come in large boats from the south and southeast. Coincidence? I think not. No. So what's interesting about that, so upon returning to Spain, is that he actually took the spearheads and he sent them away and they had them assayed, and it turned out to be that these spearheads were covered in this metal this alloy that the inhabitants called guanin, and the metallurgists actually found out that this was an alloy of 32 parts. It was like 18 of gold, 6 of silver, 8 of copper, which, dun dun dun, matched the metal used in spearheads made in Western Africa for thousands of years, as carried by medieval African warriors, including the Mali and the Moors. The West Africans even called this metal guanine, the same name used by the natives of Hispaniola. But nothing more was said about that.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop fucking lying.
Oh my God. Okay, so here we go. Black men from the South and Southeast. That could be anything. You know that a lot of Native American people painted themselves different colors, including black. Body paint was a thing. But if there was regular trade between Africans in Africa and the Caribbean, you mean to tell me all the fuck they're gonna do is bring you a spear? That's it? And from the softest ass metals too. Don't you know West Africans were Iron Age people since before the time of Christ? Who the hell goes into war using weapons made out of gold and silver and copper, the softest ass metal that there is in the world? Why the hell are you gonna go to war using copper weapons when you know how to make iron and steel? And then you trading with people and all you're gonna give them is a spear. You're not gonna give them no axes. You're not gonna give them no knives. You're gonna give them a spear and made out of some soft ass shit. Okay, alright. Would this be a good time to mention the fact that a lot of these explorers were notorious for making up bullshit? Talking about fucking sea monsters and mermaids and men running around with dog heads and all kinds of crap. Come on, man. I mean, like, this is well known. So I'm supposed to sit here and just because Columbus said some shit that cannot be proven, I'm supposed to take it as gospel fact when it's known, it's well known that these guys were famous for making up stuff, or in other words,
Fucking lying.
Leo Wiener, being the curious person and the linguist that he was, and the etymologist, he couldn't help noticing that the origin of these many place names and botanical names in Mesoamerica actually sounded distinctly like other languages in Africa, particularly Bantu and even Arabic. Wiener and numerous other botanists have also puzzled over the presence of certain plants that predated Columbus but originated in Africa. For example, the calabash bottle gourds. Now, this is a species originally from West Africa where they were well cultivated in America before Europeans arrived. Now, even long before they existed in Indonesia or Polynesia. So, in fact, the Pacific was the last place that bottle gourds actually reached and expanded to.
actually, bottle gourds have been in the Americas since at least 10,000 years ago. Now, they're not exactly sure how they arrived in the Americas, but the dominant theory right now is that they were blown out to sea and got caught up in ocean currents, which would definitely bring them on shore anywhere in the Americas. So...
well, if it were not for transatlantic trade, pre-Columbian times, it would be very difficult to explain how certain plants, such as the yam, the sweet potato, domesticated cotton, peanuts, and tobacco, reached both West Africa and the Americas.
All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make this a lot easier, a lot quicker, because if I go point by point through every frame in this damn video, we'll be here like forever and a day. So I'm gonna put Rad's video down in the comment section, well, down below. So Rad, I'm gonna help you get some coin, because if anybody's gonna get paid off of this bullshit, I'd rather it go to you. So shout out to you. And I'm just gonna go now and address all the issues that this man and his nonsense is raising. So the first thing he asks is, how did all of these New World plants, how did all of these Old World plants get to the New World? Well, the simple answer to that is that a lot of them were already here in the Americas when the Spanish came. For example, peanuts are not native to Africa. Peanuts are native to South America. They were first cultivated in Peru 3,000 years ago. And I'm going to put all of the information down below to back up what I'm saying, but you can do your own research and you'll find the information just like I did. Sweet potatoes. Once again, this is not a plant that is native to Africa. Sweet potatoes were cultivated in Central America, that's where they're native to, and they were brought to Africa and the rest of the world in the 16th century by who? Spanish and Portuguese traders. Now, bananas. Bananas are an old world plant. They're native to Asia, not Africa. How did they get to Africa? That's very simple. Once again, by trade. Indonesian traders. And it's not so hard to imagine, because if we look at that island right off the coast of East Africa, Madagascar, we see Southeast Asian people there in the population. Malagasy. They're a mixture of Africans and Southeast Asians. They brought it to Africa, as well as Arab merchants, trading in other places. That's how bananas and plantains got to Africa. And then it made its way across the continent to West Africa, across the trade lines, the trade routes. So, how did that get to the New World? Very simple. Guess who? Spanish and Portuguese traders. Once again, in the 16th century. That's how it got to the New World. Now he goes on, when he's trying to explain how it got there, he's trying to make an argument that Africans brought it by sailing. And he gives evidence by showing a depiction from Nubian art 3,000 years ago showing a boat. Well, duh, why should you be surprised, or why should anybody be surprised that in different parts of Africa people knew how to make boats? People have made boats everywhere in the world. So why is it so far-fetched to believe that Africans made canoes and boats and things of that nature also? Duh, but the problem is two things. There's a very big difference between the way you construct a vessel that's going to sail on open water, in an ocean, on a sea, and vessels that are used to travel on rivers. Very different kind of construction. So the fact that Nubians were making river boats, well, that's not a big surprise. They live on a river. But do they live near the ocean? No. In order for them to get to the ocean, they would have had to go on downriver through Egypt, into the Mediterranean, and then out through the Atlantic. Why the hell would they do that? And how would they have had any knowledge whatsoever, being on the east coast of Africa inland that there was anything worth looking for across the Atlantic. Come on, make it make sense for me, all right? If anybody, maybe the Egyptians, but once again, like, why would they do that? That's not where they were interested. For most of Egypt's history, they were more interested in inner Africa, not the Mediterranean, and certainly not the Atlantic. All right? So he's going and he's showing riverboats in Congo. Well, yes, they live on a river, and you need boats to go up and down a river. Big whoop-de-doo. That's no surprise. But was there regular trade between the Congo and Brazil? Once again, these people were Iron Age people. They had Iron Age technology. Not only iron, but they knew how to make carbon steel. Do we find in Brazil, when the Europeans get there, anybody using tools that are made out of iron or steel? If you're doing trade with people who are living by a Stone Age technology, what is one of the items that you think would be a hot ticket item? I think iron axes, knives, tools, pots, pans. I mean, those were big ticket items when the French came to Canada and what would become the United States. As a matter of fact, that's how those traders were able to get a foothold, because the Native Americans became dependent on the iron tools that were brought by the Europeans. Where do we find that in Brazil? Or anywhere else in the Americas for that fact? Nowhere. All right, moving right along. He goes on to talk about a Portuguese trader who mentions seeing Africans voyaging out into the Western Sea. There's this thing called fishing. And if you go to West Africa today, from Ghana all the way up to Mauritania, there are people who go out to sea to go fishing. Was there regular trade to the Americas? No. How do we know this? Well, once again, where are the tools? Where's the merchandise? Where are the things that they would have brought to the Americas, such as domesticated animals? Beasts of burden. I mean, if I go somewhere and I see people and they're lacking in things, I think I'm going to bring them things that they would need or they could find useful in their society, like goats, like cattle, like sheep, like pigs, or, well, they wouldn't have brought pigs because they were Muslims. And that's another thing. These people were Muslims. What have we seen a pattern in Africa or anywhere else in the world where Muslims have gone in, making trade contacts? We find a certain number of people in those communities converting to Islam. We find mosques being founded. When the Portuguese and the Spanish came to the quote-unquote New World, did they find any Muslims? Any Muslim communities anywhere? Let me see, let me think. No, hold up, let me think. No! You know why? Because it didn't happen. But, as he goes on, he even pokes holes in his own bullshit, because he's talking about an expedition that was made in the Malian Empire, which is corroborated by historical documentation. Yes, it did happen. Abu Bakari did send out 2 expeditions across the Atlantic. And we know this because it was told by his successor, which was none other than the famous Mansa Musa. That's how Mansa Musa became the king of the empire, because Abu Bakr went out and never came back. So it begs the question, if Africans had been making regular voyages to the New World, why would Abu Bakr send out an expedition to find out what was over there? Shouldn't he have already known? And if they did make regular contact, well, Abu Bakr would have come back and he would have taken his position on his throne again. Mansa Musa would not have been the king. Alright? Now, not last, but he goes on talking about these blonde invaders. He goes to the Olmecs. Now we get to the ones that we love so much that Afrocentrics are always talking about, the Olmecs. And he shows a mural of the Olmecs with black Africans and brown Mexicans fighting off white Scandinavian invaders. Except that when you look at those murals in color, on closer inspection, you see that these black people have white faces, but black bodies. How the fuck does that happen? Let me think. It's this thing called body paint, which I mentioned before. So there goes that argument out the window. You might have people who are half black and half white, but I ain't never seen nobody, a biracial person, that had a white face and a black body. So please, somebody, make it make sense for me. So now we come to the big one. The Olmec heads. Dun dun dun! With these African features. Ta-da! Okay, here's the thing. We do know that Africa is not a country, it's a continent. And it is the continent that has the greatest percentage of physical variation in the entire world. Not all Africans have wide noses and thick lips. And here's the other thing you need to know. Wide noses and thick lips are not found exclusively in Africa. They're found all throughout Asia. And guess where else they're found? Right there in Central America, amongst the Native Americans who live in the area where those Olmec heads were found. I see Olmecs every day I go into New York City on the subway. They're already there. They've always been there. Some of those people have thick noses, wide nostrils, and thick lips. It's not exclusive to Africa. But if we do go to Africa and we go to an area where they do have a tradition of casting sculptures of heads, Nigeria, we look at the features on those sculptures and the Olmec heads, and we see that they're completely different. They're not the same. So to wrap this all up, I know everybody wants to get their panties wet and think that the black people had done everything, been everywhere, blah blah blah. You got your magical melanin. Well, listen. The fact of the matter is, as I've been saying, we have enough real history. We don't have to make shit up. If you just take your time and you study the real history, you'll see that our ancestors have made contributions and advancements all over Africa, and their descendants in the New World have made all kinds of advancements and contributions to the New World, and we still are. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for Ghanaian scientists, we would not be having this discussion at all. There would be no YouTube. Okay, because it was an African scientist from Ghana who perfected the technology of fiber optics. And that's why we're having this discussion. It was because of an Afro-American scientist why we have cell phones. So instead of making up mystical, magical bullshit, how about we actually pay attention to the very real, very documented contributions that we have made and still are making to this day? And that's all I got to say on this matter. People, take care, love yourself, love the melanin that you are in, and I will speak to you next time.
Why didn't you deliberately defy me? Why did you tell her I got expelled? Because you did get expelled! That is a lie. You love it, don't you? You love to make me hit you!